So I, like many people, have been watching the Kavanaugh madness in the U.S., and I have been hearing a couple things. It's always best to check these things out for yourself, and I'll throw a link in the description there if you want to watch the hearing yourself. I'd recommend at least watching some of it, but I'll give you my breakdown of it and some opinions here. Firstly, one of the things I hear a lot about this is that we can't have a judge who has credible accusations leveled against him. He doesn't really have credible accusations leveled against him. The only way you can think these accusations are very credible is if you believe Whammon as a principle, and you don't really have to think about it. It's like, oh, someone was accused, they must be guilty. That's the only way you can consider these credible. The other thing I've heard a lot of is, oh, well, we can't have him as a judge because he got too emotional during the hearing. And we'll get to that. But first, I'd like to point out the obvious hypocrisy. You'll hear many people on the left, especially progressives, say, well, real men can cry. I don't necessarily disagree with this. I mean, it kind of means you're in touch with your emotions. Now, there's such a thing as crying too easily, but whatever. Real men can cry, but not if you're a judge. Judges don't cry. No one ever cries if they're a judge. That's unacceptable. Okay, fair enough. We'll see how you would react if there were millions of people watching you, and they all, well, not all of them, but many of them, about half even, thought that you were a rapist, based off of no real evidence. If you had been coaching your daughter's basketball teams for some time and had really enjoyed it and loved it, and now some of those parents thought that you might be a rapist, well, I would be pretty upset too, and I don't think that what he shows, the emotion he shows, is beyond reasonable. We'll watch a video of that, but first, I guess we should start with Kavanaugh. Whatever you think of his politics, which I personally don't know much about, but whatever. Whatever you think of that, he's done something that I actually consider rather admirable. And it's a little bit rarer than it should be. He stood up for himself. There are so many people who, when they're accused of these kinds of things, just say whatever they can to appease. Appease, especially upon Republicans, but also moderate Democrats as well. When the extremist left gets all upset about things, instead of saying, honey, no, that's not how the world works, or this isn't how you should act, they say, oh, how can we make it better? Kavanaugh did not do this. Kavanaugh said, no, I didn't do it. Obviously I didn't do it, and I'm going to defend myself as vehemently as I can. Good job. This is something more people should do. Now, of course, he is defending himself, which makes that a lot easier. Even Matt Damon said he would defend himself, but still accused Kavanaugh of being a bad person for doing the same thing, which is pretty shitty of him, but whatever. And the reason we cannot, so the reason appeasement, which is a strategy that's been quite popular, I guess, does not ever work, is because the extremists will tell you exactly why. If you give an inch, they will take a mile. They say this all the time. They can't give an inch, can't give an inch. And something you'll realize if you watch extremists long enough is that they project basically everything. They are worried about people who they think are going to be authoritarians when they themselves are completely authoritarian. They say that people are liars when they accuse with no information. There's plenty of evidence here. If you want to look it up, just keep watching for a little while and you'll see it. So if we understand that most of the things that come out of an extremist's mouth is indeed projection, then we'll see that the don't give an inch or they'll take a mile can be applied directly to them, in which case appeasement will never work. Rules for radicals if you want to know more about this. If you look at this from the perspective of the have-not, or what they're called in that book, the have-not loves to compromise. Compromising is winning. If you start with nothing and then you end up compromising to 30%, you're up 30%. That's great for you. And if you think that by giving someone 30% is going to stop them from being ridiculous, you're very wrong. So Republicans and moderate Democrats need to understand that these people cannot be appeased, that will never work, and they need to just stand up for themselves and for each other. So background info on Kavanaugh. This is just from his testimony. He's been a judge for about 30 years now. I think less than 26, I think it was. And no one has ever said anything about this. If it's true that there are multiple allegations and multiple people that he's raped or done whatever to, apparently one of them was about him being part of a gang raping group, which is even more ridiculous, that, just no one ever talked about. So in those years, he's never been accused of these things ever. Not once. No one's ever heard of this ever. So, kind of goes to show that this is most likely not true. There's also the fact that the Democrats, Dianne Feinstein, I think, is who actually had the allegation, had this allegation for quite a while before even bothering to make it public. Not only that, she had a perfect opportunity when they were having their private hearings to bring it up, but she never did. Not one of them said anything about it. They had plenty of an opportunity to question him about this stuff, but waited until 2 weeks before his confirmation hearing to do it publicly. If you do not think this is a political club, then I don't think you're watching the same thing that I'm watching. To the part in... so I'm doing this in order of his actual hearing, so if you would like to follow along, it would be easier for you that way. At 26:30, which is where we're going to go right now, Kavanaugh breaks down a bit. This, I think, is the most emotional he is during the entire hearing, and let's take a watch. Let's see how horrible this is.
I intend no ill will to Dr. Ford and her family.
I'm not going to make the same mistake. There we go.
The other night, Ashley and my daughter Liza said their prayers, and little Liza, all 10 years old, said to Ashley, we should pray for the woman. It's a lot of wisdom from a 10-year-old. We mean no ill will. First, let's start with my...
How horrible that a judge should become slightly emotional when he's being accused of something as horrible as having raped a woman. How terrible. Just unbelievable. So unbecoming of a judge that he should act like a human being. Just awful. Truly terrible. Judge Kavanaugh goes on to say he's been investigated 6 separate times by the FBI over his career. During all of these, of course, nothing was discovered about his supposed crimes. He's been under quite a lot of scrutiny, given the judicial course he's served on. A lot of people are going to be trying to get dirt on him, I'm sure, and no one has ever found anything like this before. Only now, 2 weeks before he's about to join the Supreme Court, does anyone hear about this. Kavanaugh denies having ever attended the party, and since we have no evidence that Dr. Ford's word have any weight to them at all, Dr. Ford's words, have any weight to them at all, that which is presented without evidence can be refuted with no evidence. And not only that, we'll go on later to see that Kavanaugh actually has evidence for his case, and of course, Dr. Ford has the opposite. Everyone she's named as a corroborating witness has no recollection of this party. So she has less than, I'd say, if there's like a standard weight for words that are just spoken and made in an accusation like this, her words are worth less than a standard word, and I'd say his are worth more. So at the same time, though, the Democrats are still going to just pick at this. So there's an argument made that he himself, by saying that he and Dr. Ford did not share... There's an argument made by the left that Kavanaugh has perjured himself by saying that he and Dr. Ford did not share a social circle. Their evidence, of course, is that some of the people who signed their yearbooks were the same people. Wow. Incredible evidence. I never, when I got a yearbook, I never got someone I wasn't good friends with to sign it. Not even once. Oh wait, no, I got a whole bunch of people to sign it, because why the fuck not? You never know. So, to say this is evidence that he's perjured himself, it's just absurd. Like, what a joke. Judge Kavanaugh points out that everyone who is being mentioned, mentioned as a witness to the party said they don't remember, meaning that not only there is no evidence to corroborate the accusation, it is in fact refuted by the witnesses named. None of the people who were said to be at the house remember the party. So, yeah, her accusation is even more full of holes. Well, I should say it is full of holes. This is the issue with it. Judge Kavanaugh has also kept a calendar of his actions since the age of 14. He says the reason he did this is because his dad did so. So for the last 38 years, he's kept track of where he's been and what he's been doing. In the summer of 1982, when this is supposed to have happened, he spent almost every weekend away from town. He was not in D.C. He spent only 3 weekends in D.C. 3 weekends. And has alibis for all of the weekends that he was in D.C. I think he was at a friend's house, training. I don't remember what the other stuff is. He does go into it. But he had alibis for all 3. He does also point out that the calendars are not dispositive on their own, which of course he's right. But they are evidence, meaning that he has evidence and Dr. Ford has none. And in fact, as we said, she has the opposite of evidence. She has refuted claims. An accusation made by the media is about the term alumnus. Apparently, there was a woman who they named this in their yearbook. Again, they talked a lot about a yearbook. They have been talking a lot about a yearbook, which is just the best that they can have, best evidence they have, and that kind of says a lot. Apparently, they have construed this to mean something about all of them having a sexual encounter with her. So, firstly, that doesn't matter. Even if that's true, it just doesn't matter. Say he was a complete horn dog and he was banging as many women as he could. Of course, he says that he wasn't doing this, and he said that he was a virgin into his 20s, but let's just assume that this guy was a player. That doesn't matter. He didn't do anything wrong. You are allowed to have sex outside of marriage. That does not make you a predator, okay? So even if it's true, it doesn't matter. Secondly, the woman in question, as I said, denied having a sexual relationship with Kavanaugh. If that's true, then why would he put that in his yearbook? And again, there's no reason not to believe her. This is a sworn statement. I'm sure that if they had one, she would have just said yes. Really. And so now we talk about some more hypocrisy from the left. So the left will say we must believe women, we must believe survivors, and they must not be questioned. Meanwhile, the committee had a letter from 65 women who knew Brett Kavanaugh in high school, saying and this is a quote, they said that I always treated them with dignity and respect. So are we supposed to believe women still? Which women are we supposed to believe? Dr. Ford or the 65 women who are saying that Brett Kavanaugh is a great guy and would never do this? I don't know. You tell me, leftists. You tell me. Which women do we believe? Dr. Ford, who has no evidence, or the 65 women? Not to mention, there were other women who have said this. Women he's worked with throughout his career. Apparently, he's made more women his clerks. And if he is a nominee, he will be the first nominee ever to have a all-female clerking staff. Yeah, what a terrible guy. No, just so terrible. Hates women. Just hates women. So it's pretty obvious here what they mean by believe women. Believe women does not mean believe women. Believe women means believe leftist women, because they are on our side. And if they're on our side, it's great. You know this because of the term internalized misogyny. This is already something we know. And that term is basically used to discredit women who disagree. Right-wing women are said to have internalized their misogyny and accepted it, and now, because they have done so, their opinions don't count as much. But a leftist woman who says, oh, I'm not being paid properly for my work, even though in a free market situation they almost certainly are. And that's not to say they're very good at negotiating a wage. This is one of the issues, but that's not really what we're here to talk about. But yeah, they just want to discredit women who are not on the left, and they want to say that women on the left are infallible. Excuse me. So it's the same tactics we've been seeing for a while. As far as I can see from his hearing, at least his presentation from it, there's no reason to believe that Brett Kavanaugh did this. He has evidence against it, and he has absolutely no evidence that he did do these things. So, is there anything that we should learn from this? Well, we should know that Democrats seem to be willing to do just about anything, which includes smearing the name of a good man in order to gain political power. Well, that is the only thing that I can see that we can learn from this. And they do not care about the consequences. This has been terrible for not only Brett Kavanaugh, but his wife and his children as well. He has 2 daughters, by the way, so we can only imagine what her friends, or his daughter's friends might say to them at school, or the mothers of his daughter's friends might say to him or his wife. I mean, they've taken who is, by all accounts, a good man, and done everything they can to portray him as a sexual predator, which is, in Western society, one of the worst things you can be. Everyone hates a rapist. Everyone. There's no one who... Well, I mean, I guess maybe rapists like other rapists, but that's basically it. Other than that, you will not find a single person in the West who thinks that rapists are great. No one. So, to call someone this without any evidence and without any corroboration is a disgusting thing, and at this point, it seems to have been completely just a power grab or a weapon to use against Republicans. There's also a question period, and I'm also going to make a video about that, but I didn't want this to be too long. So I'll upload that tomorrow, and yeah, this is some crazy shit. If you're not paying attention to this, you really should be. And I think it has implications for really the entire West. It's not just the States. I mean, especially for me in Canada, I mean, where the U.S. goes, Canada follows. That's just basically been how it works for, I don't know, certainly longer than I can remember, right? So, yeah, this is some scary stuff. This is some pretty messed up stuff. And as far as I can see, the only correct conclusion here is that Brett Kavanaugh should be put into the Supreme Court. Alright, well, watch for the video tomorrow. Some pretty ridiculous questions were asked. Dianne Feinstein makes a complete fool of herself, as she usually does. And, yeah, just tune in for that. Thanks for watching.